What's up, what's up? Today is React Rally Eve. So freaking stoked. Yeah, React Rally's tomorrow here in Utah, which is super cool, I think. The fact that React Rally is like right here in my backyard is awesome. Utah is great. It's a great place to live. You should come visit. Anyways, today I was going to show you guys really quick. I got an issue from somebody right here saying, hey, I want to sort my rows in a React table a specific way. So they say they have some fields which rely on multiple like pieces of a row to display, and then they have sorting and filtering that are different. So the example they gave me is like first name and last name, right? Like showing in a cell. You can sort on the first name and filter on the last name. That is interesting. And I was like, all right, that's kind of an edge case, but I feel like that should be possible for sure. They say, I can get the complete row data and many callback functions. It'd be consistent to have the full data in the sort type function as well. You know, I'm going to take it a step further and say it should be probably be in the sort type and the filtering as well, which I think it is in the filtering already. If we come down to the API, also, do you guys like my new logo for React Table? Thank you. I designed it yesterday. I love it personally, so I hope you like it too. Let's take a look at the API for filtering. So use filter, let's see, there it is. Use filters. Column options, filter, that's to render the filter. Disable filters, filter right here. Optional, defaults to text. The resolve function from the string will be used to filter the column's data. But we don't know what it gets passed because I haven't documented that yet. Oh man, there's so much documentation to be done in React Table. Like, it took me so long to write all of this new documentation, and there's still so much to be done. This is probably a 404, but let's go check this out. Oh, that's also a 404. Dang, I just need to go through and like change all those to-do links. So let's look at it. Filter is a string or a function. What does it get passed? Let's go to the source. You guys get to dive into the source with me. So we go into source. We go into plugin hooks. We'll see there's a use filters file right here. I love how easy it is to navigate the new React table source code. So let's see, setting up some stuff here. Then we have the use filters hook. Or the use filters, yeah, the main plugin hook. It's registering a use main hook right here. So here's the use main. That's just kind of like the main area to hook into React table. There's some other specific ones, but this is the most common one. And right here we have, let's see, somewhere in here we are determining the filter function to use right here. So wait. Yeah, user filter types. So user filter types. Get filter method. So the filter method is it's using column.filter, supporting user filter types and the built-in filter types, and then finally the column, the filter method right here gets called. So this is where the filter method gets used. Nope, wait for it. Here we go. All right, this is where filtering actually happens. So it's faceted filtering, which means it only filters the rows that were given from the previous filter in the order of the keys coming in from the filters object. And then right here, so we pass filtered so far, which is an array of all the rows. We pass in the column ID that we're filtering on. Then the filter value and the column itself. Now see that you have access to the entire row, in all of the rows right here, and the column ID. So technically you have access to the entire row in this user call out for the filter method. So that works great. What this person is talking about is the sorting. So let's go over to the sorting. If we look at the API for, let's see, use sort by, there's a column option here for sort type. It defaults to alphanumeric, which, let's go in and look at that actually. I can just show you on my editor right here. So let's see, there's sort types right here. Let me make this a little bigger for you guys. Get rid of that. Well, I'll leave it open, just kind of make it smaller. So the sort type for sorting defaults to this alphanumeric function right here. And this basically just says give me a value to compare to another value, and I will compare it for you, right? So alphanumeric is kind of like this. Very broad, flexible sorting thing that says, like we're going to, let's see, it handles numbers, mixed alphanumeric combinations, null, undefined, and infinity, like a bunch of weird things to sort by. And you guys have probably run into situations where like you need to sort something where it's like A100 and then like A1000 or something like that. And those don't sort correctly because it's a mix of numbers and letters. This will actually handle that, so it's kind of neat. This is where it's kind of doing that handling right here. Then there's like some very basic, like, oh, you want to sort date times, like just use the date time sort type. There's a numeric sort type that's like really fast, right? So if you're having like performance things going on with your sort types, then you can just use numeric or just write your own. Like numeric honestly could be for, we should really just call this like basic, is what it should be called. I'm actually going to call it that. Because basic is what everybody expects when they're thinking of sorting out of the gate, in my opinion. They're just like, oh, how do you sort? Well, like it's just, you'd have an array and you sort, right? If you don't pass anything, I mean, basically it's doing A, B, and it's saying if A is greater than B, well then return -1, or sorry, return 1. If A is less than B, then return -1, otherwise return 0. I mean, it's basically the same thing that's happening up here in the basic. So, but the problem is this alphanumeric, like all these sorting things are getting the actual values that have already been resolved. So if we go to use sort by, there's going to be like a sort method area in here. So let's see, sort method, we're getting the sort method. So it says, hey, is sort type a function? Then we're going to use that. Otherwise, we're going to use the user sort types, like custom ones that you've passed, or we're going to look at our own sort types, or just default to the alphanumeric. And then we take that sort method and see this is where it's passing in the values just like as they are. It's already passing in the values that that we've like already gotten off of the values object. And I think this is what that person is talking about. So if we look at their issue, they want access to, the full data in the sort type. And I think the easiest way to solve that, and luckily we're still in alpha for React tables, so we can kind of mess with this kind of stuff. I think the easiest way to do that is going to be like A and B. So we're going to pass A and B, and then we're going to pass the sort ID, which is like the column ID basically. And then we'll pass sort descending. Basically what that means is all of the sort types now have to be rewritten to use that API. So A and B are actually like rows now. And this is the column ID, and this is descending. And you know what? Descending doesn't even really make sense to do here. These sort methods should always return stuff in a, oh, somebody asked a question. I'm loving React table. Thanks so much for creating this, and thanks for fixing the editable table example. Only other bug I've noticed is a new kitchen sink example. Well, if you found a bug, please file an issue about it. I'm trying to get this into beta. It'd even be great to have into beta by tomorrow, honestly, because I want to show it off at React Rally. I'm super excited about it. So for this, I don't think that descend. I had it giving the descending, whether it was descending or not, to the sort method, but I think that's not right, because what's happening is this order by function is what's handling the descending and ascending right here. So I don't think it should even have access to that in this sort method, and that's going to keep people like return the correct sort function. This function should always return in ascending. Right? Then this section of the order by function will handle the inversion of sorting, if you will. So now if we come back to our sort types, we have to rewrite these. So we have A, B, and we have column ID now. These need to access the values on that row now by default. It will give other people the option to write their own if they wanted. So if they wanted to add their, sort by multiple or whatever, they could have A and B and the column ID. And now they can say, A dot original dot hello. If hello is greater than the A dot original bing bong value, then return -1. Otherwise, return 1. Like, they can write their own sort by function that lets them go across the entire row of each of the rows that are being compared, rather than just the values from those rows. And so we just need to, in fact, I'm going to write a little helper here. We're just going to say get value by column ID. We're going to pass it a row and a column ID, and it's going to return the row dot values column ID. Now these are, the values are accessed in React table for you. Clearly there's an original object here that has like the original row that was the original row that was given to React table, which could be of any shape that somebody has applied to the table. But that's why we have the column accessor, so that we can flatten out the data model and make decisions about it. And that's where these values, that's what these values are. They're like the flat, these are the values that have been accessed by the column, and they live right here. So we're going to use that in each of these top level ones. So that might be kind of funky. So let's see, let's try it up here. We're going to say A equals get, A column ID. We're just going to reassign here B column ID. That way we're comparing the same value from the A and B row, right? We could even make it a little more explicit here. So let's say const A equals row A, row B. We'll make those lets. That way, you know, people can look at the source and be like, oh, it's getting past the entire row. That makes sense. Then down here, so date time, like this, like row A, right, row B, column ID. We'll do the same thing here. So we'll grab these two. We'll do that. We'll say a.getTime. Return the basic. I'm going to block these off. It kind of feels better. And same thing here. So it's calling basic A, B. This is interesting because this one's reusing basic. But I don't think we want to do that. Let's just do this. We will take this function. We'll say compare basic. And then for this basic right here, the one that we're exporting that's built in, we can do that. This is row A and row B. And we're getting the column ID now. And then instead of returning this, we can just use compare basic, A and B. Okay. Let's see, that takes care of that. I think in our sort example, I want to make sure that we don't have any like custom sorting. Let's see, there's sort, do we have sort types? No, we're just changing it to basic here. The default one to basic. I wonder why we're doing that. First 20 rows. I don't want to do basic. I just want to leave it alone actually in this example. Debug off there. So update that example there. Now we need to go and update the README. So it's in the API. Use sort by. Okay. These are the table options. Sort types. We should just document the sort types right here. There's so many to-do items that I need to do for the, there's like little details of the documentation. And I'll get to those, but I just wanted to make sure that we didn't change anything if there's something that needs to be updated right now. So sort type, string function. If a function is passed, we'll minimize defaults to alphanumeric, which it does. For more. I misspelled more, like everywhere. Okay, so sort type, function, sort type. The function to compare two rows of data. Let's see. Used to compare two rows of data and order them. Correctly. I don't know. So it looks like I need to write some better docs for like this. Hey, go see sorting or go see filtering. There's a bunch of these like to-do links in here that, I made them as to-do links so that they'll 404 and people will be like, yo, I need that. And then they'll tell me. So I think there's really nothing else to do there. So that's one thing. That solves this issue right here. I just updated this locally to allow you to use the entire row in your sort type functions. In fact, I'm live streaming it right now. Sweet. The other one that I wanted to look at is they didn't actually file an issue for it yet. It's kind of living in this, where was it living? Let me see if I can find that issue. I think it's living in, I gotta think here. Merge. Yeah, it's definitely closed. Row span and call span, maybe that's it. Let's sort by recently updated. There it is. Okay, so this person, like this was a feature request or whatever back in like version 6, and I was like, sorry, it's not possible. Or Gary said that. Thanks, Gary. But then v7 came out, and I was like, oh man, you can do this now, and it's actually really easy. And then this person says, hey, can I achieve something like this in v7 with my headers? And I'm like, oh yeah, of course you can. Like that's the whole purpose of nesting headers. So he gave me this example right here. We wanted to add an extra top header. And then he got that. I was like, oh dang, that looks like a bug. So I wanted to go fix that. And in fact, let's just like, I'm just going to use the, let's see. Yeah, I'm just going to use the kitchen sink example here to, let's see, let's go to the kitchen, whoa. Kitchen app. Kitchen sink app. All right. And I'm going to use the kitchen sink example to kind of debug this a little bit. He's saying he wanted to have an extra header here that's like header, all columns, and then have all the columns live inside of that. So we should be able to take this out, put all those columns in there, get rid of that. There's no error, is it? Please auto format for me. Okay, there we go. Wow, my computer's really choking on something. Fans are spinning up. All right, so, and now, okay, as you can see, there's like all columns. Yeah, something is being really funky here. You know, I wonder if this is the best place to do this. It seems kind of heavy for the kitchen sink. I think what we're going to do instead is we're going to do it on the basic app. Let's do it here. Header, all columns, take these. Okay, let's stop the kitchen sink example and go back up to our basic example. Let's make sure it's yarn link to our React table, our local version, and then we'll say yarn start. When I'm doing that, I'm just in this, like if you're wondering like, oh, how can I contribute to React table? Come on, open the window. There we go. All I'm doing is I'm here in this examples directory right here. These examples are just create React app examples. So right now we're inside of this one, app.js. So if we come over here, now we're just getting this simple, like this simple version. So he needs these to span, like this column needs to span across the entire thing. Clearly it's not. Clearly something is very wrong. It's got call span 0, which is so weird. So we got to dive into that. Let's go into our use table, I think. Look for some call span. Yeah, let's just look for call span in our source. Not our snapshot tests, please. Oh, I guess I better use the React version, call span capitalized. So we're using it in our use table right here. So in our column get header props, we have call span, column, columns. So if the column has subcolumns, then we want to filter through the visible ones and return 1. But what we need to do is that needs to be recursive, actually. Because I think what's happening is it's going through and it says, hey, all columns, do you have subcolumns? And it's probably doing like, oh yeah, I have 1 or 2 columns. In fact, let's log that out. Get header props. Let's console log column.columns. See what happens. Oh, got to make sure that I'm actually running yarn start so that rollup is updating the library for me. Okay, so this is for that top cell. So it says, yeah, I do have columns. It's header name and header info, right? And then it ran it again. It says, oh yeah, I have first name and last name. And then it ran it again and says, okay, I have these 4 right here. So all columns. But then for some reason, this one should at least be saying span 2. Like that first column header should say span 2. Column is visible. So clearly, column is visible. Let's do okay, so it has columns. I want to actually log out these. Columns filter. Is visible. I want to see the visible columns for each of these headers. Okay, so it says these 2 are visible. It says those 4, but then the top level one says none of these are visible. Why? I think that has to do with is visible. Like it feels like is visible is not getting set somewhere. So, and that's probably happening in when we're creating like all of the columns and header groups and whatnot. So I think we're going to need to dive into our utilities. Somewhere in here, let's see, decorate column tree, columns. This column has columns, decorate column tree. Make header group. Okay, so we have our headers here. Header group, headers push, column. So somewhere in here, are we using is visible anywhere in here? Where is visible getting set? Right here. Instance ref, current columns for each column. Column is visible. Well, we don't have a column show. We don't have a column show for like these column groups. This is actually uncovering some functionality, some missing functionality here. That's very important. So, column show. So, column is visible is determined by if the column.show is a function, then we call it with the current table instance. Otherwise, we say column show here. Well, show, I'm pretty sure that show is a default to true for a column. But somewhere else we're not making, let's see. Somewhere else we're not setting this show true, and we're not doing that for our headers. Show, let's see, decorate column is being called on decorate column tree. You know what we should do here is we should just log out our header groups. Gummy Dogs asks, are these recorded? I'm at work. Hey, you are in luck, because every single stream I do gets recorded and saved for all time and eternity on YouTube. Like right after I get done streaming it, it goes to YouTube and you can watch it to your heart's content. So now I'm logging out the header groups. So here's the header groups. If we come down here and look at the normal columns for down here, see these have show on them, like show is true, and that's for these, like this is for first name right here, it says show is true. For the name and info header group, if we look at that, it has show true as well. If we look at this one, it also has show true. What is going on? Oh, wait. I think I know. Is visible. Is visible is only being set for the columns. We need to go through and set that for every single header, not just for the, because columns is a flat list of columns. Like, it's basically the leaf nodes of your column groups, but we need to do it for every single one. How are we going to do that? If we use header groups, I think we could just use the header groups actually. So somewhere in here, headers is a flat list of headers, yeah. Headers is a funny word once you start saying it a lot. Let's log out headers right here and just see what it gives us. Okay, so that has all of the headers flattened out. So we could actually go through on that. It's funny, you probably see on last name there's going to be an is visible true, and on all columns is visible is not there. We need to make sure that we're doing that for every single header. And that's what we're going to do here. Instead of looping over the current columns, we're going to loop over the current headers. That way you can actually show well, actually that kind of opens up a new possibility, because now you'd be able to put a show function or a show boolean on a header, on a header group, right? So if we wanted, we could do this. We could say all columns show false, and like it would just hide all of these columns. In fact, we could even do it down here. That might make more sense for name. So this might actually enable us to do that. But what we would have to do is like recurse. We'd have to do this recursively. So it would be like, so right here it would be like determine visibility. and we would pass it the instance ref.current. And if we're recursing, we don't want the flattened out version. We would want the structure. So we have to pass it like the header groups. Yeah. But we'd only want to pass it the first header group, actually. Okay, and that doesn't exist yet. So we're going to come down here, determine column visibility. And then down here, we'll just make a new, actually, we'll do that in utils. We'll do determine column visibility. Over here in utils, we're going to export a new, let's see, export determine column visibility. And it's going to give us the, let's see, it's basically columns. And then we're going to take these columns, and what we want to do is handle column. Handle column is going to be a function that takes a column, does some stuff with it. This is going to be that stuff right here. So yeah, it'll be columns for each handle column. So inside of here, we'll say column is visible equals this. Oh, we're going to need the instance ref for that as well. Let's just get rid of that actually and pull it off the instance ref. .current. Yeah. So this is the instance. We're going to do const header groups equals instance. We'll do first header group. We'll go over the first header group. And then for each one of those columns, right here, we'll determine the visibility of it. And then we'll say if columns and columns length, we want to loop over those. But we need to set all of those to false too. So columns, let's see, parent visible. We're going to default that to true. So what I'm doing here is to say column.columns for each. We need to do the same thing. We need to call handle column on those. Subcolumn. But we also need to do, we also need to pass in if the parent is visible or not. And what we're going to do is we're going to say if the parent is visible, then we're going to allow it to do all of that. Otherwise, it's going to be false. So if the parent's visible, let the column determine its own visibility. Otherwise, is visible is going to be false, and we're still going to keep going down the tree. So This is actually doing something that a lot of people would think is wrong in React, which is mutating the columns. But for performance sake, and we're being very careful when we do this, we are mutating the columns on every single time. And that's fine. Okay, that's fine to do here. Usually I would prefer immutability for a lot of things. But that's what's happening right there. So now if we come back, it's going to, okay, let's look at any errors that we've created here. First header group for each is not a function. Are you sure? So instance current header groups. So header groups here, first header group. We'll default that to nothing in case it's not there. Let's see. First header group for each is not a function. Well, I wonder why. Oh, you know what? That's why. Is because header groups have headers. So I wonder if there's a better way to do this instead of headers. I think columns are the flat list of columns, right? Do we have a column tree? Yes. I think column tree is probably the better way to go here. We get the column tree, but we never really assign it back. Because you put in columns to React table and you get back a flat list of them. I actually think that we're going to add the column tree here. So I'm going to add that to the API actually really quick. So use table where is it? Let's see, use table. Here we go. Use table right here. So table options, and then what's coming back on the column options, instance properties right here. So columns, I've just exposed a new, so there's a column tree, a nested array of column objects computed from the original columns configuration option. So it's basically the same as columns, but instead of being flat, it's nested. And we're going to use that now in determining the column visibility. So we get the instance, instead of using header groups, we're going to use the column tree. And the column tree starts as, it's just an array, right, of columns that have arrays of columns. So we should not get an error here. Yeah, we do. Header group dot get header group props is not a function. Well, that seems unrelated. It says get header group props is not a function. Well, that is strange. We're not doing anything with header groups. Come on. All right. Now we're talking. So it gives us an array. Each column here is visible set to false. Oh, okay. So if is visible is set to false on all columns. Do we have that set on all columns? No, that's just set on the header name right here. All columns. Show is set to true, but is visible is set to false. Wonder why it's doing that. So is visible, parent visible, it defaults to true here for each. I guess we'll do the same thing here. Get rid of that implicit default thing there. See if that changes anything. Let's see. Show is true. Is visible is now set to true for that. All right. But hey, columns is not. Where are columns inside of there? Is column tree not returning? It doesn't look like column tree has the nested columns inside it. Column tree. Flatten by columns. Are we deleting column.columns here? When we make the header groups, we're deleting column.columns. Interesting. I wonder if that screws anything up if we get rid of that. Because I don't feel like that should be happening. Let's take a look at our tests here. Make sure something doesn't totally die. Yep, something died. So let's see what died here. Yeah, it's logging out a bunch of stuff. I get it. Okay. Oh, something didn't die. We got a new snapshot because things are actually working correctly. So renders a groupable table to cospan. To cospan 4. This is in the groupable table. Okay. We'll have to go look at the groupable table example here. Use expanded past. The next one passed, the next one passed. Pass. I shouldn't have logged all this stuff out. Okay, renders a groupable table. Failed because it's got all that new stuff. All right, well, what about this? Okay. Well, hold on. Part of this did work. So let's see. We wanted to support, hiding a whole group of columns, which this does, because we can see that the whole name column is being hidden now. So it says all columns is visible true, and then it has columns name info, name info. Oh. And I bet that's because of delete columns. I don't like this delete columns. I think we need to take it out and really understand what's happening here. So some of this header grouping logic, it can be extremely complex, but we're going to walk through it anyway. So make header groups, columns, remove child columns. Why do we remove each of the child columns? Let's see. Column.columns is probably in here somewhere. So why are we removing the child columns here? Build group. Dot columns. That's what it's doing. So right here it's saying the last parent column dot columns equals the last parent columns. If the latest parent columns includes column, but instead of deleting it, we just reference something different. I don't understand. Make header groups. Where are we calling make header groups? We're calling it on all the flat columns. Right, so we're going from flat columns and we're going up. It's like reverse engineering the column layout. Yeah, okay. So for every column, we're removing the child columns. But why are we doing that? Again, back to the same question. Why are we removing child columns? Let's see. We're going to say column dot built into header equals true. We're going to use that down here wherever it's doing like dot columns. Latest parent columns equals oh yeah, because we're reassigning columns here. That's what's happening. So we do have to delete the columns. But make header groups columns. It shouldn't be killing the old columns. Are we assigning anything on here, like mutating anything? This is where mutation can just get kind of crazy. Placeholder columns equals latest parent column. Parent columns. I think just what we need to do here is we have to source, let's see, flat columns we need to make a copy of each of these columns, basically. Flat columns map. We need to make a copy of these columns that we can manipulate, because otherwise when we mutate this stuff right here, it's for the sake of this header group thing, it's mutating, but it's deleting off of the original column. So I think by making a copy of it to create the header groups, header group get header group props is not a function. But that's why we wanted to have the same column reference to every single thing, though. That's why we can't mutate it. Darn it. So we want the same column that, you know, we create in the decorate column. We want to have that reference be used throughout the flat column list, the header column list, right? So header groups get made, column tree. So all of this is just to determine some visibility. Jeez. Like right here, all we're doing is determining column visibility. We want to go down the tree to do that. But I guess we can't go down the column tree. The column tree is not really that stable. Yeah, the column tree isn't stable, so we can't use that. We need to use the header groups. So instead of the column tree, we'll use the first header group row, and we'll do headers. And then right here, we'll say yeah, no. This is proving to be a little more difficult than I thought. You know, and this stream's getting a little long too. I just realized that. So I think what we're going to do is I'll let you guys go. I'm going to keep working on this issue. I really would like to solve this for this person. You know, this needs to be solved. The whole show hide thing is kind of, we're adding some extra work on top of what this guy's asking for. But we can definitely work on this offline. And if I have time, I can show you guys what I did to fix it. But I hate to keep you. So let you guys go. Thanks for watching. If any of you are going to be at React Rally tomorrow, come talk to me. We'll see you later.